There is a house, quiet now, nestled on the riverbank beneath the hush of trees and time. Its timber bones remember. Behind its faded curtains is a home where a woman wept before she beat the odds and opinions of her place in this world, where her child learned that equality was not a gift for the privileged, but a cause worth fighting for. A home filled with experiences that carved a legacy that would pave the way for others. That legacy lingers in the walls, in the worn path to the door, in the silence that hums like a promise. And though its champions may be gone, their spirits are not. If you listen hard enough, you might just hear what they have to say. Welcome to If These Trees Could Talk. Today we are gathered on Wonnarua land to share a story that took place not far away on Worimi land. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of these lands and the elders past, present and emerging who have lived on and cared for these lands for thousands of years. This episode will air on the 25th of May. Tomorrow marks National Sorry Day, a day to acknowledge the harm caused to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people by the forced removal of their children from their families, a period known as the Stolen Generations. It is a day for remembrance, reflection, and reconciliation, recognising the intergenerational trauma caused by past government policies. And with that, I have some additions that I would like to make in this acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge the generational pain, the mistrust, and the mistruths. I also want to acknowledge your inability to feel safe on the land that you belong to. I want to acknowledge the loss of language, culture, and most importantly, love that was stolen along with your children. And I want to say, I am sorry. I am sorry this happened. I am sorry this wasn't stopped. I am sorry the truth of your experience was hidden. And I am sorry that in this country there are people who can look a parent in the eye with empathy and say, I am sorry when that parent loses a child, even if the person apologising wasn't the cause of the circumstances that caused their death. I am sorry that you are not always afforded the same level of empathy. When you share your experience, there are times where you are met with attitudes of, I didn't do it, what have I got to be sorry for? For that, I am deeply sorry. Your pain is not inconvenient, and we all have the capacity to hold it. If you are a non-Indigenous person and you have made it this far without skipping ahead, thank you. If you grew up feeling safe, knowing your family's history, speaking your language, and celebrating your culture, that's privilege. It's not something to feel guilty about, but it is something to recognise. Sorry Day isn't asking us to carry the guilt of the past. It's just asking that we share the weight of the truth. In the room where the curtains were moving, let's talk about what happened in there.
Oh yeah, I definitely seen all of her.
It was like a small hand grabbed me on my hand.
All of a sudden, I saw this, I don't know whether you'd call it a thing, I'd say it was a man.
Konnichiwa, Shannon.
O genki desu ka?
I'm good, thanks.
I can't remember what it means. I just remember that that's what they taught me in Japanese at school.
That's the limit of my Japanese.
This has nothing to do with Japan, this episode. But after we record this, Megan is cooking us a Japanese dinner. She is dressed in a full kimono and chopsticks and has her, what are they called, inside slippers or inside shoes?
Inside shoes.
Inside shoes. My commitment to dressing up today is a set of Pikachu chopsticks in my hair. I haven't quite gone to the lengths that Megan has, but I have taken some videos of how she's set up where we're dining tonight, and it is extraordinary. She's done a great job. So I'm looking forward to that. When we got here, there was beautiful Zen Japanese music playing. So we'll get through this little trauma stuff. Well, it's not trauma. It's a great episode. I'm excited to share it with you.
Should we disclose that we've got alcoholic beverages with us this afternoon?
We do. We are drunk podcasting today, and that's excellent because I have a driver today, which is great.
Yay!
So family dinner means that the boys are out there taking care of the kids while we're in here doing our important stuff. So today we are headed just across the Hunter River to Tomago, which is obviously the land of the Worimi people and quite close to our home. It's kind of situated between Raymond Terrace and Williamtown, which is where Newcastle Airport is for people who don't live around the area. Tomago is now basically just an industrial site, but just nestled on the banks of the river is this beautiful house, and you have been there.
I have. We celebrated my cousin Paul and his beautiful wife Anna's wedding there.
And it was stunning.
So beautiful.
It is a really, really lovely home, and we went on a paranormal tour. I bought the tickets for Mum for her birthday, but it just so happened to fall the night before Mother's Day. So it was kind of like a double celebration. She got a birthday present. I gave her Mother's Day presents in the car, and thank Christ she pulled in when she did, because when I got there, I was sitting outside. I took a video, which I'll put on socials, as I drove in through this tree-lined, sort of overgrown grass driveway in the dark and pulled up outside this house. So there was some people inside the house, but I was early because I didn't want Mum to turn up and just be sitting there by herself. And I'm sitting out there in the car in the dark outside of the place where we're about to do a paranormal investigation all by myself. And I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? I was shitting myself. I didn't need to be, because there was nothing about this experience that was terrifying, even though we had a lot of activity. So I'll go into that a little bit more, but I want to tell you a little bit about the history of the house first and some of the really exceptional characters that live there.
And you mentioned that we might be doing a live call to your mum?
Yeah, I'm going to give Mum a call because Mum's like, she's hardcore spooky dooky, right? Like, I have these little strange experiences that I struggle to kind of explain. Mum sees full apparitions and has always done. There's a couple of my friends from like when I was in late primary school, early high school that like refused to have sleepovers at my house because we had a man that lived in the back part of our house. And like, even when my little brother was tiny, like maybe 3 or 4, like when he could go to the toilet, the living area and kitchen and bedrooms were sort of all at the front of the house. And then you go down this long hallway and the bathroom was off to the side, and the hallway would lead into the laundry at the back, and the toilet was just off the laundry. So you'd have to head down this hallway and in to go to the bathroom of a night time, which is like the furthest point from where everybody else in the house is hanging out. And one night, Brad was in the toilet, a little tiny kid, and started screaming, and Mum and Dad run down, and it was because the man had come through the wall into the toilet. Mum had seen him a few times, but we also had a young boy that used to show up there. We never seen him. I had some weird experiences where I felt like people had sat on the end of my bed. There was some weird stuff that happened in our house at Bellbird back then. So she's just always been really attuned to it. I remember her telling me the story about one night driving down Neath Hill, and a woman walked across the road in front of her with a pram, and like she jumped on the brakes thinking she was going to hit this woman, and the woman just disappeared. Like she's had a lot of experiences. So there's a reason genetically that I'm weird, and it's because of her. So she had some really extraordinary experiences here at Tomago, and she was feeling a little bit, I'll let her explain it, but I think she was feeling a bit anxious about going. And when we got there, we realised that we had no reason to be, but I'll explain why. But we'll get to that shortly. There's a grand old house tucked into the wetlands of Tomago on the border of the Hunter Valley and Port Stephens. This home is quiet now, its verandas looking out over soft green paddocks and groves of towering trees. But if the sandstone walls of Tomago House could speak, they'd whisper stories of ambition, hardship and resilience, and maybe even the faint rustle of a ghostly presence watching from the shadows. Built between 1838 and 1840 by one of colonial New South Wales' most brilliant legal minds, barrister and politician Richard Windeyer, Tomago House was more than a home. It was the heart of a bold dream. Windeyer poured his energy into the estate, draining swampland, planting vineyards, even importing a vine dresser from Europe. He had a vision, intellect and ambition, but like many dreams in colonial Australia, his came at a cost. Crushed by debt and overwork, Richard died at 41, leaving behind his wife Maria and their infant son William. The task of saving Tomago House fell to Maria, a woman of steely resolve who refused to leave the land that she had grown to love. Against the odds, she preserved the heart of the estate, building a chapel and nurturing the home through storms, economic depression and passing generations. Today, Tomago House stands not just as a relic of colonial grandeur, but as a place heavy with memory. Visitors speak of strange sights, a rocking chair gently swaying on the veranda when no one is there, shadows in the cellars, and the unmistakable feeling that someone or something is still keeping watch. In this episode, we're going to step through the doors of Tomago House, not just to trace the remarkable story of the Windeyers, but to explore what might linger from their time, who still moves through their rooms, and who might still be calling Tomago House home. So I'm currently sitting here outside of Tomago House in the dark. There are obviously some people inside setting up for our ghost tour, and I'm a little bit early because I didn't want Mum to have to be here sitting in the dark by herself, and I am currently highly regretting that decision. It is too early for me to go and knock on the doors to say, "Hi, I'm here." So I have no choice but to sit outside this place that's haunted and just sit in this little foresty garden all on my own. So wish me luck. I will check in and let you guys know how we go. You can hear the nerves. I was not okay. I was freaking out.
Why? Because I've been on a ghost tour with you and you weren't, well, I didn't pick up that you were nervous.
I think it was being alone. If there's an experience that happens and there's other people around, you've got safety in numbers. Like,
Cos had our back.
Cos had our back. That's absolutely. I think it was anticipation as well, because we did this investigation with Newcastle Ghost Tours, which is Renata Daniels and her offsider Anne, who are the coolest. Like, they are the queens of the paranormal scene. So I probably was a little bit nervous too, because like I fangirl them hard. I have followed them for a long time. So I'll just introduce you to who they are. So Renata is a skilled psychic medium. She's an author, an intuitive healer, and a professional tarot reader. And she has over 30 years of experience studying paranormal, supernatural, and the occult. And Anne has been a paranormal investigator for over 10 years now, and she runs Oz Paratech, which is Australia's largest online paranormal equipment store. Anne is a natural born entertainer. Like, she's funny. The girls have a podcast called True Hauntings, where it's either places that they've been, and it's all over the world. or it might be places where there's like a heap of supernatural reports and stuff, and then they kind of go in and they research the history and try and debunk things. They're very no-nonsense type of girls. Like, you're not going to cop jump scares or anything like that. They want evidence. So their podcast is excellent. Totally recommend listening to it. But probably it'd be over 10 years ago now, I would say. She wrote a book called Newcastle Ghost Tours, and I went to Cessnock Library to hear her speak at her book launch, and I just loved her. She's a very serene, calm presence. I just really enjoy her, and I think that's why Anne kind of gets the entertainment side of the thing, because Anne's like me, like she's boisterous and an extrovert and out there, and so this little dynamic duo that they make up is really quite lovely. I enjoy them a lot. It's worth checking them out.
I'm still stuck on the part where you said she runs a store for paranormal things.
So
you can have a whole shop full of things?
Yeah, so remember the
How
EMF readers?
Yeah, how many of those can one have?
There's a lot of ghost hunting people out there. And so like those EMF readers, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the tools that we used as we went through, and Anne obviously supplies these to people.
Wow.
So say if we just wanted to do our own little paranormal investigation, we could go onto her website and buy a few tools to take with us, because it's about gathering the evidence. Like, it's all great to say you see or feel something, but if you can back that up with something else, then it's great. So we'll talk a bit about some of the tools that we used. And I had a friend, Todd, who was like super into ghost hunting, and he had gone out and bought a lot of these things.
So you'll put the podcast and the shop links in the show notes?
Oh, 100%. Yes. Together the girls have, it's kind of like an umbrella, which is called Frightfully Good. And I think that's kind of like the umbrella for all of the things. But they run Newcastle Ghost Tours, the podcast that I mentioned. There's a heap of their stuff on YouTube where they do different investigations and go to different places and talk about their stuff. They even do like overseas paranormal tours. So like you can book to go with them, and you might go to Ireland and go to,
Shannon.
6 or 10 different places. One day this podcast is going to make us some money, and we might use it to go on one of those tours.
I feel like your family Lord Howe Island trip just took a few steps backwards.
Yeah, that's right. I just want to explain the difference between Q Station and what this was like. So I had done some research prior to going to Q Station,
which was one of our previous episodes. So if you're interested, you can go back and listen to that if you haven't already.
Yes. Probably because you guys were going, and I wanted to give you a bit of a background as we were going around. But then we talk about it in that episode that kind of dampened the experience for me. So I did nothing. I didn't research it. The only thing I knew was that we'd been there for Paul and Anna's wedding.
Great wedding venue.
Great wedding venue.
Yeah, I knew that too.
Yeah. So they tell us nothing. They kind of introduce people, and you get to say hi to everyone, and they give you a rundown of what you're going to do. There was probably a group of about 20 of us, so it was a large group. They told us nothing about the history of the house. They just gave us an idea of what was going to happen. So we go into this main foyer part, which is pretty extraordinary. Then they split us up into groups. So there's probably 5 or 6 people in each group, and then they send you off into different parts of the house. Now, in saying that, they have a lovely team of volunteers who are there. So you're never on your own. Like, they're not just sending you off into this really scary place unsupported without somebody there. So the first room that we went into was the caretaker's cottage, which was out the back. And we walk in, and there's some chairs placed around the room, sort of facing different ways. And you go in and you choose which chair you're going to sit on. And then they turn the lights out. They don't tell you anything. They don't tell you what other people have experienced in that space. They turn the lights out, and it only lasts for about 3, maybe 4 minutes. And then the lights come back on, and the people that are in the room share if they've had feelings or if they've seen something in that room. I was facing the bathroom, Megan. So you can imagine after Q Station and the Gravedigger's Cottage and the stories of the bathroom, I was not okay, but that was the last chair left, and I would just sat there facing the bathroom. And when they flicked the lights off, it's complete, like it's pitch black dark. I got this flicker of light because where I was sitting, I was sort of next to a wall. The wall was, how do you explain that? Perpendicular to me. And I was sort of sitting against the wall looking into the bathroom. Well, as we were doing it, I get this flash of light on the wall and I was like, oh, maybe it's a passing car. But it didn't move. It just was in this one spot. And then when they flick the lights on, they say, okay, tell us what you've seen or what you felt. And this other lady in the room goes, there was a flash of light. I hadn't said anything about me experiencing that. And she said it was up here and I could see it. And I said, well, I seen this flash of light thing too.
In the same spot?
No, so hers was on the wall, but if there was a flash of light, it would have reflected. And then Mum said the same thing. She was like, I seen it too. And she said, I thought it was someone shining a torch from outside. So I turned around and looked outside and there was no light coming through the window. Mm-hmm. And we're like, okay, so this is a little bit weird. So you talk about your experiences and then you go round to these other rooms. And we did have some big experiences in some of the rooms. And then once you've done your 4 or 5 rooms, everybody comes back to the middle and the group leaders have been collating the information from each different group. So the person who comes in after us has no idea what we've experienced. So there's no confirmation bias. Similar to when we were at Q Station and you go in and people say, in this room, this is what people feel. And so then you're immediately presented with that.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what I should be feeling. There was none of that.
Making it a fair scientific experiment.
So when we come back to the middle, lots of the stories matched up of what people experienced in these different spaces. So that part probably takes maybe 45 minutes, an hour, and then they use some of the tools. So we got to go down into the cellar and use the spirit box, and we'd used a Ouija board in the front room. Upstairs in the attic, they had a whole heap of EMFs and some like cat balls and different things. So if they get touched, they set off with bright lights. They had divining rods, which, you know, do you know what they are?
I do. Uncle Jimmy used to have some.
Oh, did he?
Is it for looking for water?
It is. It is for looking for water, but they measure energy and frequencies and stuff, and that's how they find the water.
Okay.
Well, they use them in paranormal investigations. We had some amazing results with those. Same thing, group leaders collate the information and the experiences people have, and then we go back down and we all chat about it. So it's a really full couple of hours, but so enjoyable because you're sharing it with your little group. So you kind of make friends with the people who are in your group and you get to spend time in these different spaces and with different, like each person stays in their room, like the volunteers and we move around. So it was great. Like it was so great. Highly rate it. There's one at Stroud. They do a Wollongby one. There's one at Tomago Homestead, Miss Porter's Cottage in Newcastle. Because I had done a tour with them previously at Maitland Jail, and it was quite funny because I spoke to the girls afterwards and I said to them about, oh, yeah, I did a tour with you at Maitland Jail. And they were like, oh, Maitland Jail. And I'm like, I know, I can't believe it's closed. I have never had anyone meet me with the same enthusiasm or disappointment over the closure of that place to the public. So all I can say is if you're interested in this stuff, get on one of these events because it completely exceeded my expectations. It was so good. The other thing about this team of people is they're no nonsense. There's no jump scares. So they're letting you make up your own mind. They didn't tell us anything about the house. They didn't tell us any of the history. So then I had to go home and research that.
Oh, even at the end, they didn't tell you?
Nope, nothing.
How often do these tours run?
Fairly regularly. Like there's one every, I think, couple of months.
So maybe if you're interested in going on one and you don't want that background history, just pause this.
Pause it. Some people might like to know the history, and I would have liked to know the history. Now that I've been, I need to go back knowing the history, and you'll see where it ties in and why that could have been important.
Okay.
So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the family. Richard Windeyer was a passionate and driven figure in early colonial Australia. He was part lawyer, part law reformer, and was always a man that was deeply committed to fairness and change. He was born in England in 1806 and he made his way to New South Wales in the 1830s. He quickly became one of the colony's leading barristers, but Windeyer's legal legacy lives in the values that he fought for. He stood firmly for social justice, championing the rights of Aboriginal people at a time when they were denied even the most basic legal protections. He spoke out in court when others stayed silent and pushed for changes that would allow Aboriginal people to give evidence at a trial, which was an essential step towards justice at a very pivotal time. And we'll explore this a little bit more because I have been recording an episode about the Mile Creek Massacre. So, yeah, we will revisit that. It is a big trial, a lot of stuff. And I didn't realise then, but Richard had been mentioned in the book that I read about that. So he was a big deal. He wasn't afraid to confront the powerful, challenging unfair land laws, questioning government about authority and calling for economic reforms to help struggling settlers. He fought for better access to education, especially for the poor, and believed that truth in journalism mattered, not just for the elite, but for the public good. He was also deeply involved in the growing movement for representative government, pushing for the people of the colony, not just the Crown, to have a say in how their land was managed. Although his ambitious farming projects drained his finances and he died young and in debt, Windeyer's vision helped lay the groundwork for a fairer, more inclusive Australia. He gave voice to the voiceless and stood up for what he believed in, even when it cost him. His story is one of conviction, courage, and compassion, and it's a reminder that real change often begins with just one person daring to imagine better. I am in love with this family. I just cannot believe how pivotal this whole family was in the early colonisation of New South Wales and fighting for things that were not important politically. And they just seen problems and they addressed them. While Richard built his legal career in Sydney and poured his earnings into his land at Tomago and his ambitious agricultural projects, it was Maria who quietly shaped the home that would become the heart of the Tomago estate. She oversaw the design of the homestead herself, creating not just a residence, but the nucleus of a vast, demanding property. As the swamps were drained and the vines were planted, Maria was not merely a spectator. She managed the business side of the estate from early as 1844, keeping the books while raising their young son. When Richard died in 1847, leaving behind heavy debts and unfinished dreams, Maria refused to be defeated. With remarkable resilience, she took control of the property's future. She refinanced it, sold off portions of land, and dismissed the superintendent, choosing instead to run the estate herself. She turned Tomago House into a working enterprise, producing beef, preserves, and wine, even hiring the German winemaker that we mentioned before in 1849. By 1855, one of her wines had earned a certificate of merit at the Exposition Universelle in Paris. Maria remained at Tomago until her death in 1878. Her quiet strength left a deep impression on her son, William Charles Windeyer, who would grow into one of the colony's leading legal minds and a champion for women's rights. As Attorney General, he introduced the Married Women's Property Act in 1879, a landmark reform shaped in no small part by the life and legacy of his mother.
Can I throw in a random comment here?
You can.
because when you were sharing that, it made me think of something that I learned at Blues Fest recently.
Mm-hmm.
I told you that I'd fallen in love with Fanny Lumsden.
Yeah, you did.
And she explained to us that it wasn't until 1994 that women were allowed to legally put farmer as their occupation.
What?
Hmm.
1994.
Mm-hmm. She's got a song that refers to it.
This guy, their son, William Charles, was pivotal in changing these situations for women. And obviously, the start of that was based on his mum's experience. But throughout his own legal and political career, William was a strong advocate for women's legal rights. As a Supreme Court judge, he presided over the notorious Mount Rennie rape case in 1886, which was a group of young men from Sydney who brutally gang raped a 16-year-old girl. Windeyer's firm ruling led to multiple convictions and executions, sending a powerful message about the seriousness of sexual violence at a time when victims, especially women, were often dismissed or disbelieved. It was the only gang rape case in the 1880s that led to a full conviction. He was a good guy.
Yes, but also that's disgusting.
Oh, it is disgusting. But in that time, men just, boys will be boys.
In that time?
Fuck that.
You say that like things have changed.
Marginally. So from 1838, when the house started to be built, that Windeyers owned it for over 100 years with 3 generations of ownership. In 1944, Tomago House was purchased by the British textile firm Coulthard's. The house was renovated for use as the manager's residence, and the Coulthard's factory is actually across the road at the front of Tomago Aluminium. So you can still see that. That was when we made lots of textiles in this country. It was a big, big business. So they bought the house and the manager of the factory lived in it. In the 1970s, it was acquired by a Mrs. James just as her personal residence, and she did put in a pool, but it has since been filled in. And then in the 1980s, the Tomago Aluminium smelter was established, and the firm acquired Tomago House as part of the buffer zone established around the facility, which is pretty cool because that's where Scotty works. It was in 1988 that Tomago Aluminium gifted 12 acres with the house and the church to the National Trust of Australia, and they now manage the property. I told you about my little ghosty light in the front room. We went into, I'm assuming it was probably like a living area at the front of the house, and we sat down in chairs there, and I clearly saw a shadow figure in that room move. I couldn't make out what it was, but it was a shadow that moved and then moved away and back towards us, and it was like it walked through the group of people. That was also seen by 2 other people in my group, plus a third person, my mum, who can tell us who that was. There was another room where, like, everything was closed up. The curtains clearly moved, like significantly moved, and you could see the light that was coming through the windows shifting on the ground. In another room, I heard some tapping and a whistle, but I couldn't tell if the whistle was a bird or anything, so I didn't say it afterwards. You know, I'm a bit weird about saying stuff, like I think people are going to think I'm crazy, and no one else mentioned it. And I was like, oh, it could be a bird, you know, because I'm always looking for ways to disprove it.
I think with the group of people that you were with, you should probably stop overthinking that you're weird.
Yeah, probably.
Let it go. I think they're all weird.
Yeah, we're just a whole bunch of weirdos. And then afterwards, when everybody come together, and he's like, the whistler's back. And I'm like, what? And he's like, there was like 3 different people in 3 different groups that heard, they refer to him as the whistler, because obviously these guys go here a lot. So they see.
This is a volunteer.
It was one of the volunteers in the room. they see the same spirits that turn up each time and the different signs that they're there. And apparently they hadn't heard from the whistler. And then I was so disappointed that I hadn't told them that I'd heard it. Yeah, it was cool. There was some stuff upstairs where I think we had some interactions with a little girl.
Is this in the attic?
This is in the attic upstairs.
As soon as you mentioned that, I was like, oh, yuck.
Oh, the stairs, even getting up there, like they're gnarly. And it was all very lovely and peaceful. But I think we were like the third group. And then the last two groups had a very different experience up there. And apparently there was a bit of a scungy uncle or someone that would go up there, and they didn't really give us a lot of detail, but it didn't sound great. I don't know whether he slept up there or whether he was up there trying to, spend time with the children. He's turned up before, this guy, so it wasn't unusual for people to have that experience, they said, but the feeling that those last two people got was very different to the feeling that me and Mum got while we were there. But we might try and ring Mum.
Hello.
Hi, Mum.
How are you?
Good.
Hello, Sue.
Hello, Megan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm going good, thanks.
I'm excited to hear about your experience last weekend.
Oh, well, it wasn't frightening at all. It was all good, all comfortable. So
Tell us, Mum, because I know you said to me that you were a little bit apprehensive before you got there. Was there any reason to be?
I don't know what came over me, but I just felt that I was very apprehensive going there. Not that I'd heard anything about the place or anything like that. It was all good, but it was just me on the night, and I think it was just raining and dark and a bit creepy when we drove in.
It was creepy when we drove in.
Even when we went and sat on the veranda, it was a little bit creepy,
Yeah.
But as soon as I went into the place, I felt really, really good about it.
Yeah.
So, not creepy at all. I don't know why I felt like that, but I just did. Don't often feel like that.
No, I think it's just the unknown. Like you're going into somewhere and you don't know what to expect.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Um,
that's the way it is. Yeah, felt like that too when we went into the house at Junee,
Yeah.
and yet I've been to other places and I don't feel like that at all. So anyway, it was all good when we got in there.
It was great.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing scary inside at all.
No.
Even though you've got some pretty wild experiences. I was just telling Megan about me seeing the shadow figure in that front room. Do you want to explain what you seen in the front room?
I was just sitting looking at the window. That's where they had me seated. And, I seen she was a little old lady and she was crouched over with a torch. And I felt like she went across the back of me because looking into the window, that's how it seemed to me. But, I definitely seen all of her. That's about it. I was a bit gobsmacked, to be honest with you.
Because it was interesting that there was 3 other people in the room that noticed a shadow moving through the room, including the group facilitator, but you were the only person able to make out features about her.
Yeah, and sort of that made up my mind that I did see her go behind me because I was sitting looking out of. Was it a glass door or a window, I think?
I think they're like French doors that go out onto the veranda.
Yeah, floor to ceiling anyway.
Yeah.
So I sort of said to myself, is that outside? Nah, that's inside. That went behind me.
Yeah, it was the reflection. So what about in the room where the curtains were moving? Let's talk about what happened in there.
Well, just sitting there and the curtains were moving and that creeped me out a little bit. But I was okay, just sitting there looking into space really. And then all of a sudden I saw this, I don't know whether you'd call it a thing. I'd say it was a man. But he looked like he was levitating in the room. Others saw it as well. But it was like he had you could nearly say he had a gown on. Or if you put a sheet over somebody, and it was draping down in front of you. But he was definitely levitating in the room.
He was high,
So,
and the other lady in the room thought that her impression of it was that it was a man hanging in the
yeah,
room.
well, you could say that. Yeah, because he definitely was on an angle. Yeah, hard to describe, really.
But he moved through the room, like you watched him move.
He moved from sort of over towards the curtains across the room. Yeah.
On the night you described it, like when you just said then about the sheet, you said on the night it was like a robe, like, and you thought
Yeah.
it made you think about a priest or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. At first, that's what I thought it was. A robe, but it was hanging in the front because he was levitating.
Thanks for clearing that up, because in my head I was like what a 5-year-old would draw a ghost. That's what I was seeing in my head, like with the
Ghost.
eyes cut out of the sheet, flying around.
If you could imagine, like, say a Church of England minister walking up the aisle with his white robe on,
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing. That's what it looked like to me.
And is there anything in the history of the house to explain this?
Well, there's a chapel on site, but I asked Mum, did she think it could have been a judge's robe?
Ah.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we need to do some research into maybe what judges' robes look like in the 1800s and see if it lines up with what Mum originally thought. Because when the lady, she said, there's someone hanging in this room, that the other lady that was in the room with us, and she's like, someone's been hung in here. And Mum was like, no, she said, he's moving. She said, it's like he's floating, like he's higher than he would be.
Yeah.
And the lady said, would you say it's levitating? And Mum was like, yeah. Like, Mum didn't really think about levitating.
High in the top of the room, like up towards the ceiling.
Yeah.
From where I was looking. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be possibly lots of different things. The other thing, Mum, I wanted to ask about was, what did you think about when we were up in the attic?
Oh, yeah, when we were holding the sticks.
There was definitely someone following us from room to room. So without me telling you, because I've just told Megan what I thought it was, who do you think it was?
I don't know who it was, to be honest with you, but you just know that feeling, and then when I picked up those sticks, it wasn't in the room with the doll, I didn't feel, but I thought it might have been a child or, I think maybe it was in that room and followed us out. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure about that one.
Yeah.
But that was just my thoughts at the time.
I felt that touch me. I sat down on the floor. They had dolls and stuff, and it was an attic and they were small rooms. I just assumed it was a children's area, right? So I sat down on the floor and I said, do you want to come and play with me? And Mum was kind of laughing at me a little bit because it was just the two of us in the room. And Mum's saying, it's okay. You can come and sit down and are you happy here? And the EMFs were going bonkers in that room.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got up off the ground. I pulled a little toy out and I'm like, you can play with the toy. And anyway, I'm standing there with the EMF reader and I had my hand out because it was going up to red. And as it was going up to red, it was like a small hand grabbed me on my hand. But I couldn't see anything. The EMF was going off. That was the only indication that we had. And I said to Mum, she's touched me. And I don't know why I thought it was a girl. And it could be confirmation bias because we were downstairs and it come through on the spirit box the name Esther. And so I asked a couple of times, are you Esther? Just because it had come through downstairs. And there was no yes or no answer to that. But I had a strong feeling of a little girl and it was like a little hand grabbed me. And so I handed Mum the EMF reader and I said, can you hold this and see if she'll do it again? And I put my hand out and the second time I didn't feel the actual grab. What I felt was my hand just went warm. So the first time it just felt like as if Charlie or Parker or someone had grabbed my hand. It was a proper grab. But the second time, no, it didn't happen.
Definitely more you than me.
Up there it was. Yeah.
Yeah. But then they told us afterwards that was the children's quarters, so
Yeah,
sort of fits, doesn't it?
it does. It
So,
definitely does. So what was the standout moment for you?
oh, definitely seen the little lady with the torch.
Yeah.
It was like she was a little old-fashioned lady with like a scarf around her, shoulders
Yeah.
and that. But she was only very, very small, but I'd say she was very little and oldish.
Well,
Yes.
in all of the research that I've done since they talk about Maria, who was the lady who run the whole property, and
Yep.
that she's probably the most seen person there.
Oh, righto. Well, then maybe that's who I've seen then.
Yeah. So
I haven't researched it yet, but I will.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You'll deep dive into it better than I have, and we'll probably have to do a part 2 and you can do all your research, because Mum will link it on Ancestry and she'll find out who the illegitimate children are and tie it all in.
Good, because we're still waiting for part 2 of Monte Cristo as well soon.
Yeah, Mum might have to come and just do that with us. So
Oh, I love Monte Cristo.
yeah.
Yes.
But the problem is with Monte Cristo, the more answers we find, the more questions it creates. Yeah.
Shannon mentioned before we called you that your house at Bellbird had some spirits in it.
Oh, that was scary. That was to me, because I was only a lot younger then, and I didn't take it like I do now. I was really scared that there was definitely things there that happened.
I think Mum could have a real gift, but she's terrified of it.
Yeah.
Like, I think she's probably the granddaughter of one of the witches that they couldn't burn somewhere down the track. Like,
well, I think, deep down you say to yourself, well, there's got to be an explanation for it, Was it the way I was looking? Was it outside? Was it in the window? Was it the way the light was shining in? I question it, sort of thing, because I'm not sure. I know there's something. I've seen things, but what that is, I don't know.
And you just wonder how many times you have to say to yourself, oh, it could have been this. It could have been this, before you go, can I just actually say, yes, it's something I experienced. I know I've called you right on dinner time, so we will let you go and have your dinner.
That's all right, yep.
But
okay, well, you enjoy your dinner too. What are you cooking, Megan?
I am doing Karaj chicken, Claire's doing sushi, Scott's doing ramen, and Tom's doing like a teppanyaki thing on the grill.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it will be good.
Yeah. Well, I've just been up and I'm trying out a new recipe, and it's called Irish bacon, cabbage and potato soup.
Oh, yum.
So I've got the garlic bread in the oven. I think it's going to be yummy. All right, well, I'll let you girls go and have a good night.
We will do. You have a good night and enjoy your soup.
We will. Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Sue. Bye.
Bye. So that gives you a bit of a glimpse into what her experiences were, which was great. Like, she had a really lovely time. She loved it. And honestly, I don't think I'll have much problem convincing her of going back again. Probably to sum it up, like, it was just great. And I just want to go again. I want to go to every tour that they offer now. So maybe I can convince you and Cos to come on an actual paranormal investigation, and you guys can then see the difference and we can hear from you. So
I'm very, very keen. I've got full FOMO. I was like, why did you take your mum and not me?
I have to be mindful of the fact that I just can't make you do all the things that I love. There is some really great information online about this family if you want to have a bit of a deep dive into what a massive role they played in shaping government and the legal judicial system in Australia. It's definitely worth doing a bit more research into if you're interested. Tomago really isn't just a historical site. It's a living memory of people who stood for all of the things that I value, like justice and commitment and hard work, and they clearly loved each other deeply, and the fact that they refused to look away from hard things. Like, let's have a really deep respect for these people, and I wish I knew what I know now last Saturday, because I would have really liked to have been in their home and to say thank you for paving the way to make things a little bit easier for the less privileged people moving forward. Like, these guys, they were a prominent family, they had money, but they cared about all kinds of other people. It didn't matter whether it was Indigenous rights or women's rights. They just tried to do the right thing. And I just think I probably would have been friends with them if I was a girl in the 1800s. After being there, I can see why the team at Newcastle Ghost Tours treats this place with such reverence and respect. And if you get the chance to go and do a experience with them, 100% recommend. You'll probably find me there as well. But if you want to have a look at what they've got upcoming in way of events and tours and things, you can find it on their Facebook page at Newcastle Ghost Tours, or their website, which is newcastleghosttours.com.au.
Thanks, Shan. Let's eat some sushi.
I'm so excited. We will see you in a fortnight.
Bye. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of If These Trees Could Talk. If you would like to access more about the places or information included in today's topic, please visit our website, ifthesetreescouldtalk.com.au. If you would like to follow us on our adventures, check us out on Facebook or Insta. Our creative writer is Shannon Walters, and our podcast is produced at Bellevue Studio in the Hunter Valley with audio production by Megan Anderson. We love to hear your feedback, so please rate and review, and if you would like to hear more, please subscribe. We look forward to you joining us for our next adventure.